Kneel before Zod!
You can't go! All the plants are gonna die!
I'm gonna take a bath.
Bad dates. I'll alert the media.
Boys, keep off the moors.
It's evil! Don't touch it!
The name's Pliskin.
No more hangers!
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing Tuck Everlasting, released June 5th, 1981. It was written by Fred A. and Frederick King Keller, based on the novel by Natalie Babbitt, directed by Frederick King Keller, and released by One Pass Media. 2 days later, Larissa Oleynik was born.
Aww.
Happy birthday.
Clarissa? No.
Close.
Larissa.
Larissa Oleynik.
I don't know who that is.
Alex Mack.
Oh, the other Nick one.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly. That's why I said close. In 1975, author Natalie Babbitt wrote Tuck Everlasting, a children's fantasy story about an immortal boy and his relationship with a young mortal girl. The story received its first feature film adaptation in 1981 and a second in 2002, followed by a 2016 Broadway musical.
They made this into a musical?
Apparently. I'm not sure if this version was ever released theatrically, but I couldn't prove that it wasn't. And it did screen for the public as a part of the 1981 U.S. Film Festival in Park City.
Would you believe that I actually had seen this movie before?
Had you?
Yeah.
So had Jesse. That's the only reason it was on the list.
I think I had seen it too. I'm pretty sure that we watched it like on a VHS in like 7th grade when we were assigned this book.
Probably the same VHS.
They only had one and they had to pass it around from school to school.
It was stolen from the Park City, Utah Film Festival. It was shot in Buffalo, New York from late summer 1980 to early spring of 1981. That's about it for production notes on this one.
It's about all you need.
We start on a Ferris wheel at a fairgrounds. A carnival barker tries to lure customers into a freak show. Hot air balloons are afloat overhead. Women walk by in feathered caps and Sunday dresses, and it seems we're somewhere in the 1800s, though we don't get a specific year.
I would have put it like
turn of the century.
Yeah, right about 1900s. Yeah.
It's late 1800s.
Is it?
Based on Winnie's span of life, which we see toward the end of the
that's
film.
smart.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. There was a gravestone, right?
Yep. A young girl sits with a ribbon-winning goat in her lap and nuzzles its ears before taking a nibble at one. A man in a top hat hawks a miracle elixir to a crowd. Suddenly, a young man is climbing up the outside of the Ferris wheel, and he waves to the people below him.
I do like the sort of idea that they have a snake oil salesman.
Already, yeah.
Well, just like the concept, I know we haven't gotten that point yet, but like the concept of like an elixir that could, make you well and cure all that ails you and help you live forever. I mean, that's exactly what he's selling. And he obviously isn't selling the real one, but there is one in this
scenario. Funny that he's doing it. He's selling it like 20 minutes away from where there is one that he could be bottling.
Yeah.
An elixir vitae, as Fu Manchu would refer to it. Remember that movie, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We cut elsewhere, where Winnie Foster collects a turtle from her front yard. Through the trees, she can see the Ferris wheel and hear the music of the festival, but she's not allowed to attend.
I'm terribly uncomfortable with most of these scenes with her because she is wearing like all white throughout most of this movie. And I'm like, you're sitting on the grass and you're holding a turtle.
Right.
You're going to get grass stains and you're going to get turtle poop all over yourself.
That's true.
Why are you wearing white and doing this?
Well, turtle poop is white, so you're fine
Is it?
there. I have no idea.
I believe it.
I'm not even sure they poop. People spot the boy climbing the Ferris wheel, and he's now hanging from one of the gondolas. Later, we will learn that this is Jesse Tuck. Among the gathering is a man in a yellow suit who we will come to know as the man in the yellow suit.
There's no Curious George though.
Correct. It's just the man.
Yep.
He didn't get his hat yet.
And the hat is what makes him good versus evil.
Right. Here he has a boater hat, a Van Dyke, and a cane, and he's practically twirling his mustache already. Jesse swings perilously from the still spinning Ferris wheel. Half of his audience is impressed and the other half are terrified. They flip a switch to slow the wheel to a stop, and Jesse is stranded at the top of the wheel. While the crowd is distracted by the scene, the tonic salesman takes a swig of his own concoction. Jesse stands on the edge of a seat and walks along the beam between the Ferris wheel gondolas. He turns and balances on his own head, with his legs in the air, but the wheel suddenly breaks loose from its lock and spins, tossing Jesse overboard. Among the crowd's shocked faces is a wooden one, presumably in the hands of a ventriloquist that I don't recall seeing thus far, but I love that it's making a shocked face for this moment.
I know. I was watching this, and I had to rewind it like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, are they trying to pretend that was a real person? Then I realized
they just didn't have enough extras for the scene.
Like, oh no, it's supposed to be a guy with a puppet. I get it.
Do you remember the last time we had a puppet react to something it saw?
Humanoids from the Deep?
Yeah.
when the puppet noticed first that a humanoid was busting into the tent?
Yeah.
Jesse falls probably 40 to 50 feet and lands flat on his back before the crowd.
He must have broke every bone in his body.
He lays there crumpled for a moment until his eyes pop open and he rolls backward up onto his feet to ruckus applause. The Ferris wheel operator chases him away where Jesse jumps onto a carousel and then ditches that for a real horse and rides it into the distance. We cut back to Winnie, who pets the turtle some more and complains that her father wouldn't take her to the fair.
Winnie, who are you talking to? Grandma.
We will learn that this is Grandma's catchphrase. Winnie is bored with her repetitive life and never being allowed to leave the property on her own. 2 kids wander by and tell the story of the boy who fell off the wheel and miraculously survived.
I bet it was 100 feet right to the ground. Golly, I bet he was a mess. No, that's the funny part. He wasn't hurt at all.
Winnie promises the turtle that she's going to run away someday. Grandma calls her inside for lunch and threatens to eat her turtle if she doesn't get a move on.
There's a lot of turtle consumption threatening
Yeah.
in this movie. And it's like, is that... I mean, I never lived, obviously, back in those days.
I think you ate everything but dogs.
Yeah, it's just like, was that a thing? Like, it's like, yeah, get some turtles and we'll cook them up.
Turtle stew? Sure.
I mean, that was a big thing on the Ninja Turtles show. Like, for some reason, the crew of Channel 3, where April O'Neil worked, were constantly talking about eating turtle soup. And it's just like, why is that such a huge thing in just your office?
Yeah.
I feel like that's not even a New York thing. That's specific to this floor of the building. The camera drifts out to a cabin in the woods where a voice is announcing a noontime wake-up call to someone named Tuck, which is actually the surname of most of the cast of characters. The voice belongs to May Tuck, matriarch of the Tucks, and her sleeping husband is Angus, though she'll refer to him directly as Tuck for most of the film. She tells him that their sons are returning home soon, and he says that she interrupted a dream about heaven. May plans to take a horse into the woods today because she's bored and she hasn't spoken to anybody in 30 years. But the kids have only been gone for 10, so she's spoken to somebody.
Yeah.
Just not
Well, I think she
other
means
people.
outside their family.
Right. Angus doesn't like the idea, but he relents. She also asks him to fix the spring in her music box, and eventually he agrees to do that too. They make vague references to their unusually long lives, comparing a decade to the time it takes to cook up a pot of coffee. May brings her music box for the horse ride and heads out into the woods. In a thick of trees, the camera tilts down the length of a tree to a spring, sprouting bubbles from underneath.
I think it's weird that they make the analogy, though, that so much time has passed. Because honestly, yeah, more than average for a person, but they're not that old. Like, this didn't happen that long ago.
Right, yeah.
Because it's been, like, we come to find out that the youngest boy is 104.
Right.
But
he
he
was
was
17.
But he was 17 when this happened.
It's been 80 years.
Right. So it's only been 80 years, which isn't even beyond the lifespan of a person.
Well, for them it might be. For the adults it might be.
Yeah.
Depending on how old they're supposed
I guess,
to be.
and at that time it is. But it just, like, I don't know. Like, it's not like you've lived, like, 10 lifetimes. You've lived, like, one really
one and
long
a half,
lifetime.
Maybe. Yeah. Back at the Foster house, Winnie wanders a bit out of the yard where she is spotted by the man in the yellow suit. He strikes up a conversation about the fireflies she's chasing. He asks how long her family's been here, and she jokes forever. She asks if he wants to talk to her dad, but he's perfectly happy hitting on a child for now. Winnie accidentally releases the firefly in her hand, and the man tells her if she wants to keep anything in this world, she has to hold on tight.
Winifred, who are you talking to out there? It's a man, Granny. I can see that.
Grandma comes out to interrupt the creepiness. The man tries to compliment her figure, but Grandma doesn't suffer no fools.
How delightful it is to see you looking so fit.
Why, shouldn't I be fit?
Yeah, I know I'm hot. What's your problem? He tells them he's searching for some kind of a fortune here, and she's in the middle of telling him to fuck off when she's distracted by a far-off twinkling music in the woods. Most likely she's hearing May's music box, but she identifies the sound as fairy music and tells Winne that the sound comes from the elves in the wood. She's concocted a whole mythology from the music, apparently on her own.
It's the elves you heard.
Oh, did I say that?
It's the elves themselves. Now, they have to gather together every so often in the woods, and then they dance, maybe 5 times in a lifetime. You can't believe your ears. What can you believe?
Where did your ears hear this, Grandma? Because that sounds like a load of bullshit to me.
I mean, again, building up to what you were talking about, Jesse, like that, it makes it seem like this family has been out there for like 200-300 years.
Right, yeah.
And like creating this whole mythology of the music that carries on.
Right, but it's probably just Grandma having heard it a couple times when she was younger.
Yeah.
And not even that much younger.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe like 10-15 years ago.
Yeah. Grandma walks Winne inside and tells her more about the magical elf orgies commencing in the woods.
Nobody said orgies.
I mean, orgy is just a festival, a party.
A bacchanal.
What kind of parties do you go to?
Orgies. Later that night, Winnie's...
Elf orgies.
Elf orgies. What kind of parties do you go to? Lame ones? I'm going to elf orgies.
I brought the Keebler cookies for this elf orgy.
Oh, I thought you said key like it was a key party. You just knock on the tiny door in the tree. So how does this work? Is this just like a glory hole? I just stand on my head out here? Later that night, Winnie's mom tells Grandma to stop making up shit about elves because it's just going to drive Winne into the woods. The next day, we see a young Irish girl chasing wildlife out of the Foster's garden. While the girl is distracted, Winne sneaks out of the house. The milk carriage rolls up and drops off today's delivery. While the girl flirts with the milkman, Winne creeps off into the woods. Right at the edge of the property, she hears Grandma calling for her and pauses briefly before dashing into the wilderness. She follows a beaver through a row of trees and comes upon a small creek. She keeps hearing twigs snap, and eventually she hears the whistling of a young boy, Jesse, resting in a tall tree. She watches him climb down, and he finally notices her, giving a quick glance to the bubbling of the nearby spring. She introduces herself as one of the Foster family who own these woods. He gifts her a feather that he found. She asks how old he is.
Well, I'm 104 years old.
Truly.
17.
17, that's old. Are you married?
No. Are you?
She puts her hand in the spring and mentions how cold it feels and how thirsty she is, but Jesse warns her against it, claiming it tastes terrible.
I'll just take a sip.
Oh, that water's bad.
He yanks her away and lifts her completely in the air. He throws Winne up onto his shoulders and helps her climb a nearby tree. She loves the view and invites him up. They hear May's music box approaching.
It's my mom and my brother. They're supposed to meet me here.
When they arrive, her family seems concerned to find Winne here. Just then, someone is calling for Winne within earshot, probably her hot-ass grandma, and we get a shot of the man in the yellow suit listening in. May Tuck regrets risking this interaction with the townspeople, and they make a run for it, inexplicably taking Winne with them. Like they just throw her on a horse and take her away.
Yeah, weird choice.
I don't understand this decision. I mean, other than to...
It only makes sense in the book.
Okay.
Which I read, and he'd already told her about the spring before they kidnapped her.
Okay.
Because there's no reason to kidnap her yet, because she doesn't know anything. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And also, they added... I read the book, and I watched the 2002 version, and in the 2002 version, they make it seem like Miles is almost a villain, like he's a dick, because he had a family, and he's so angry about them leaving that he just is really bitter, and he does everything like by the book, and he's willing to follow all the rules even if it hurts people. So he's the one who grabs her, and then they go back to the shack.
Oh, okay.
They find their path blocked by the man in the yellow suit, and he asks if they've seen a curious monkey around these parts. See, that's where I put the joke. No, it's okay. Yours is better. It should have gone closer to the introduction of the character. He asks if they're kidnapping Winne.
Little girl called for help, if I'm not mistaken.
Jesse says it was just a prank, bro, and his brother Miles claims that they are family. But this man knows the Fosters, and eventually they admit that they are the Tuck family.
Knows the Fosters. He literally talked to one of them for like 5 minutes.
Well, he knows enough to know that these are not her kin.
It's not her grandma. He doesn't know anyone else in the house.
These are hill folk. They're not fancy.
He makes some bold assumptions here.
Sure.
Tux, you say? Interesting, I'd say.
I'm going to talk like this for the whole movie, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh my God. Speaking of
the repeating thing drives me crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of one pass productions.
Yeah.
It's like one pass on all his dialogue. It's like, did he say this before? I don't know.
Let's just have him say it again. Let's have him say the same word over and over again. He asks Winnie if she's okay and draws a gun to silence the family's interventions. Winnie goes along with the Tuck story that they were all going on a picnic together and she was just joking about needing help. He interrogates the family as to where they come from, and when Miles asks him to put the gun away, the man shoots him in the chest to prove that the weapon is harmless. Miles says the weapon must have misfired, and the man says he loads it with blanks, mostly to scare people away.
I don't understand this either.
Yeah, like, okay. I don't understand because both groups know what happened. Miles knows that he got shot by an actual bullet.
Right.
And the man in the yellow suit knows that he shot the man with an actual bullet.
Well, here's the thing, is that it must have been a test. That's literally the only reason to do it is as a test.
No, 100%. But I'm saying it's a bold assumption because he's like, I bet that I've heard tales that there's a thing that, lets people live forever.
And specifically, he knows that it's the Tuck family. So when they say they're the Tucks, he's confident enough that they're the Tucks that he's willing to shoot one of them to prove. Right. But there's also Tucks in the world that did not drink from this spring that makes people immortal. So, yeah, it's a insane risk to take to go, I'm going to shoot this guy, and if he's fine, then I'll know for sure that the spring is real.
And if he's
not fine, then I murdered a man and I go to jail and I die.
Right, but I'm rescuing the girl or something. Yeah, I don't know. But I guess the question that I have, though, is if he knows and they know, why are we playing this game of it misfired and, it must have been, loaded with blanks?
Yeah, I think basically the point of the scene is just so that he can confirm for himself that they are the immortal Tucks that he's here after. Mm-hmm. And when he says, I load it with blanks, that's so that they think that he doesn't know the secret. But, like you said, Miles knows he was shot, so he knows it wasn't blanks.
That's why I don't understand why they're both playing at this game.
Yeah.
The only reason I can see to play at this game is
to not give away to Winnie what's going on.
Yeah, like even the man in the yellow suit's like maybe,
he doesn't want anybody else to know the secret.
Right.
Okay.
Because if Winnie knows and her family actually own these woods, then that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So then he's like, all right, I'll let you kidnap this child and then I'll trade the woods for the kid. That's the whole rest of the movie, basically. But here we go. But after he shoots Miles, he does look very surprised at the recovery because it's the first official confirmation that he got that these people are invincible. He lets them pass, and the Tucks escort Winnie back to their cabin. When Miles carries Winnie over a stream, she notices a hole in his shirt where the man shot him. So at this point, she should understand it wasn't blanks. Mm-hmm. The guy shot you.
Yep.
You didn't get hurt for some reason. They invite Winnie to stay with them, but before she can answer, Jesse shows her a trick. He takes his horse across the river, and in the middle of the water, he stands on the saddle and then flips off into the water, disappearing under the surface for longer than a breath. But he surfaces smiling, and we get an ominous insert of the man in the yellow hat watching them leave. Didn't need this.
Yep.
Didn't need a reconfirming of their invincibility right here.
Also mildly confused about how this invincibility works.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they do get hurt, but then they heal very quickly.
Right. Yes.
So is he drowning when he stays under this long?
Yeah. Is that painful? Is it not
quickly?
Painful at all? I guess it's not painful.
Well, and they eat, but do they need to eat?
Yeah. I wondered about that too, because maybe they don't need money because they don't need food and they could live anywhere. They finally reach the cabin, and Angus looks a little worried by the new face. He helps Winnie off her horse and compliments her beauty. The boys take her down to the river, and again they disappear below the surface until she worries about them, but they reappear. Same gag, second time. We cut to Angus moving a pony sculpture and then loading a shotgun. May and Miles tell him about the man in the yellow suit who took a shot at him. Angus tells Miles to figure out who the man is and what his angle might be. That night, the family enjoy a meal around the fireplace. Winnie tells the family that she wants to go home, and Angus agrees to get her there under one condition. It is of utmost importance that Winnie never tell anyone the incredible secret that he is about to share with her for absolutely no fucking reason.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 90 years ago, they came here from the east and drank from a bubbling spring on her family's property. Everyone partook of the stream except for their cat, which is the 4 members of the family and a horse. They moved further west, and a few years later, Jesse fell from a high tree and landed on his head. Impossibly, he stood up uninjured. Later, some hunters accidentally shot their horse, who had also drunk from the spring, and it didn't feel a thing. The bullet went right through it. In the book, the dad shoots himself in the face to test it. Or no, not the face, the heart.
Okay.
He points a shotgun at his own heart and he shoots through himself.
This is a young adult novel. That's pretty extreme.
But either way, it's like there's other ways that we could test this than shooting yourself in the heart.
Even on Heroes, the cheerleader took like a pair of pliers and just cut off one of her toes.
And then it just grew back.
Yeah, just to test it.
I'm not even sure that would happen to these people, though. Is that how it works? Do you have like starfish regeneration ability, or do you just recover from things? Because you could recover from having an arm removed, but the whole arm's not necessarily going to grow back.
Right.
Because in the book and in the 2002 adaptation, they carve a big letter T into the tree that's coming out of the spring, and the only reason that they noticed that the spring was there is because the tree's not growing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, why didn't the tree heal? Why didn't the T fall apart and the bark just regenerate over the top of it? And
we also will see in a moment, we'll see Angus plunge his whole hand into fire.
Right.
And it's not like it comes
That's a
out.
much easier test than shooting yourself in the heart.
Yeah.
And Pa got bit by a copperhead. Yeah, and Jesse ate them poison mushrooms.
Yeah, and I cut myself slicing bread.
Cool story, Mom. Dad was juggling snakes and I was overdosing on hallucinogens while Mom made us a sandwich.
I mean, this is the best case for Darwinism. And none of these people should be around.
Right. Well, I mean, it sounds like May was from healthy stock. They were just cutting themselves making sandwiches. That's fine.
But back in the old days, they made sandwiches on their wrists, and they had to cut lengthwise.
My mom used this big serrated knife to cut open a bagel one time. And she had it just pinched between her thumb and her fingers, and she was cutting down and just went right into her hand, right across the palm, and it freaked me out. It was awful. Bleeds a lot when you do that.
Now it really is an everything bagel.
Apparently, it took years to notice for certain that none of them were aging, and their friends started to accuse them of witchcraft. They returned to the spring and made camp. Impossibly, they noticed that the tree drinking from the stream hadn't grown in the years they'd been away. Did they memorize the width of this tree decades ago? How could they possibly have noticed that?
Well, I think that you could tell that a tree hasn't grown in 20 years, that it's...
How do you recognize it in a forest of trees? How do you notice one tree is the same age and not go, we've never been here before. I have no fucking idea where we are.
Well, if it's still got a little bubbling brook at the bottom of the roots, I think they'd be able to find it again.
But does their hair grow?
Yeah, there's things that aren't technically, that I wouldn't call aging, that I feel like a tree would naturally widen because it has to with the changing of the seasons. Like it's not the tree aging doesn't make it wider. What makes it wider is the fact that it has to become accustomed to.
But regenerating the cells that currently exist, as in not dying, versus aging are two different things, because Jesse hasn't gotten older.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But he still regenerates cells. So the tree hasn't gotten older. It hasn't added layers like it does every season.
But that's weird that it's not doing that.
It's not aging. So it's not adding a ring every season.
I don't think that's what I consider. Like if you put a tree in a treequarium, what would you call that?
An arboretum?
An arboretum. You put it in an arboretum protected from the changing of the seasons, then it won't grow those rings. You wouldn't be able to count those rings because the rings are indicative of the temperature and the environment changing around it.
The rings are themselves, but the tree will still grow wider without rings.
Will it?
Yes, it will still expand.
It just won't have rings.
It just won't have lines in it.
Okay. So why wouldn't this tree still be expanding?
Because it's not aging. It's not growing up. Like the kids aren't growing up. The tree is not growing older. It is not aging.
Right. You've sold me on this. I'll take it.
Does it lose leaves in the winter and then grow new leaves?
See, I would say that it shouldn't lose leaves And so it would be
Or
weird.
if it does, the leaves would grow back immediately. So it would just be a pile of leaves around the thing.
Yeah, it'd be really deep. Well, no, I wouldn't think that it would lose leaves.
No, it shouldn't. It should be basically an evergreen tree.
Because leaves falling off are dead. They fall off because they die because of the seasons. So they shouldn't.
So is it green all winter,
it's the
covered in
only
snow?
green deciduous tree in the entire
That's how they should have
forest.
noticed it. That's how they should have noticed it. Because it makes no sense that they were like, let's go through this random thick of wood. Like, the chances they would even hit the same tree on their path back are impossible.
Man, Lord help the English teacher whose student listens to our podcast.
Yeah. But if it took them years to even notice that they were immortal, it would be impossible to attribute this to a spring they drank from decades ago. There's no way that they would be like, you know what it was? That water we drank the one time. That's what did this to us. It could have been a million other things. Oh, remember that sandwich we had 20 years ago? I bet it was that.
Eat? What? No.
Yeah, exactly.
But we fed to the horse.
But it doesn't make any sense that they would remember that the cat didn't drink from a stream 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it. They could have passed through an anti-aging portal along the way.
They could have gotten brigadooned or something.
Or it could be the tree that's causing it and not the spring. They have no fucking idea what caused this. But somehow they've landed on, for sure it was the spring we drank from 20 years ago. Because I bet randomly that's the reason that we stopped aging, is because we drank water that one day. We also drank water the day before and the day after at 2 different springs. But it was that spring for sure, I bet.
They have a control cat at every spring they drink at.
I mean, like, if they deprive the cat, if they deprive the cat water at that one spring, didn't they probably deprive it? Maybe that's why it died. It just dehydrated the poor thing.
Depriving it of water.
Maybe we're just really healthy people and we're just like eating the perfect diet.
Yeah. Because we are still eating.
It's those huckleberry pies.
Yeah, in the movie, they're just, in the book, they're also just, the 2002 movie in the book, they're eating pancakes constantly. Like, every meal is just piles of pancakes.
Because they also never gain weight?
Yeah.
Is that the implication? That
I guess, yeah.
Well, I feel like what it does is it just, like, whatever you are right now, those cells regenerate. You never gain or lose.
So you can't actually lose weight either. That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Like, if you were a big fat person, you couldn't be like, well, now I literally have no reason to exercise.
Yeah,
so.
basically.
To prove his powers, Pa takes Winnie's spoon and holds his hand in the fire until the spoon melts into a liquid. First of all, I don't think a simple fireplace is hot enough to melt a steel spoon into liquid.
Maybe back in those days when the metal was
Fire was hotter back then.
Yeah. Oh, it was way hotter. No, but metals weren't as refined.
Maybe. But it's clearly just the actor holding a handful of mercury.
Which is also really bad.
Right. And then he dumps the mercury into a glass funnel, which would certainly have exploded if this was molten steel. But he just dumps it into glass into a little mold, and then he dips his hands in water to make the water hiss because his hands are so hot. They're retaining the heat from the fire.
Were utensils made out of steel at the turn of the century?
What else would they be made out of?
Tin?
Silver?
Silver, maybe. Maybe it is silver. That would melt in a fireplace, probably.
For sure.
Yeah.
Gallium.
Yeah, probably
My gallium fork.
Yeah. She was using a mercury spoon, but it was just really cold in this cabin.
Don't stir your tea with that gallium spoon. Ah, no.
It's going to look like the spoon in Private Eyes, where it's just rotted away in the drink. The funnel feeds the metal into a mold, and Pa withdraws a tiny steel horse, or silver horse, like the one you might find on a carousel, but mini-sized, because this guy makes horses for carousels.
I thought it was going to be the new spring. Like he had
that
made
would
a
have been
mold
smart.
for a new spring.
For her music box.
Yeah, not the water spring, but the spring for the music box. Sorry.
Yeah, that is confusing.
And as far as I can see, we're all going to live forever.
Jesse explains that because he was 17 when he drank, he'll be 17 until the end of the world.
Well, that kind of talk will make her want to rush back and drink a whole gallon of this stuff.
Angus points out to Winnie that if Jesse hadn't dragged her away from the water, she'd have been a little girl forever. The next day, Angus rows Winnie back down the river to her home. Along the way, he explains the danger of the spring, but honestly, this speech doesn't make any sense, because water that makes people immortal is only a good thing, and there's no explanation around it. Angus's biggest worry is that someone will profit off of it. But I would say that one step worse than selling this miracle elixir to people is keeping it hidden forever, letting people die all over the place.
There's a larger ethical debate here.
There's not. Water that makes you immortal is a good thing. It's literally only a good thing.
What about the overpopulation?
Fuck it. Doesn't matter. Nobody needs food.
Yeah, but you can't just keep... Like,
you can. Yes, you can.
Increasing the population.
Yeah, you can. Just start building cities on other planets. You can do that now. You could just drop 1 million people on Mars and they'll get to work right away because they don't even need to breathe.
They need to breathe. Oh my God. Patrick.
They can live in the ocean. How much of the world is we not using because it's underwater?
Totally take it back. You're right. You're right.
They just put on their gallium shoes and march into the ocean. We see the man in the yellow suit on horseback charging through a field away from the Tuck cabin. It's their horse, their immortal horse that he's riding. Winnie says that people wouldn't have to die or be sick, and Angus corrects her.
No, Winnie. Only those people who could afford it.
So I guess suggesting that it is better to help nobody than to help some people. Like, I get it, rich people are bad, but still, it's like, hey, there's like kids dying of cancer. We could like sneak them a bottle of this stuff, and then they would be fine. And their parents would much rather have them kids forever than dead.
Yeah, but then we're going to run into some real creepy, like, interview with a vampire shit with these kids that are, like, actually 104, but they look 5. It's going to be real creepy.
It's less creepy than dead.
I don't know.
Angus says the temptation to be rich is too powerful, but once you're immortal, does money matter anymore? Like... oh, I'm going to sit here and sell this water all day. It's like, no, I will take one sip and then I will walk off and do whatever the fuck I want because I don't need food anymore and I don't need a house anymore. I literally don't need anything. I could just do whatever I want all day. He doesn't seem to be getting through to her, and he's almost in tears trying to explain. I worried for a second that he was going to push her overboard to keep their secret safe. I just got to make you understand.
I just got to make you understand.
Hold on to this cinder block for a minute.
Miles appears on the shore and shouts to them that Ginger the horse is missing. May is out looking for the horse, but the family basically deduces that the man in the yellow suit must have stolen the immortal horse. Everyone is very distraught about it when we get a bizarre sound effect that the boys seem to recognize as indicating that Ma is home. Spaceship sound.
Yeah.
Which I was sure marked the arrival of space aliens, but Jesse says that Ma has uncorked the bender or something like that, which apparently means that they can use an enormous auto-playing calliope now. Ma rushes downstairs to dance with Miles while Jesse dances with Winnie, and they're all celebrating even though a second ago they were distraught that their horse was stolen. Now it's a party. We cut to the man in the yellow suit meeting with the Fosters. He tells them that he knows where Winnie has been taken, and he offers to share with them her location in exchange for the deed to the woods. For some reason, the family don't go directly to the law to report this man for holding their daughter hostage. Mr. Foster is very reluctant to do business with the man, but agrees to draw up the papers when he fails to consider any alternative action, like, say, looking for his daughter himself or having this man arrested as an accomplice in her kidnapping. That night, Ma explains to Winnie that they've been in this cabin for 20 years, but they can't stay anywhere forever because the town's always sour on them. They tell her they'll take her home tomorrow, just like they told her yesterday, and it's off to bed with her.
So she hasn't been home now in days, right?
And I thought that was the whole point of Pa taking her on that boat ride for hours yesterday while he tried to explain, no, it's funny when people die. I want it to keep happening. Don't help anyone.
But they're not that far away, are they?
No. Jessie surprises Winnie in her bunk and suggests that maybe drinking from the spring isn't such a bad idea after all. Think about it. You'd never get sick, age, or die. You could just go around helping people and volunteering for dangerous tasks. You know, all the obvious benefits of immortality with literally no downside. He advises her to take a sip from the spring when she turns 17. Winnie says that she'll need time to think about it because she's dumb. The next morning, the man in the yellow suit leads the constable to the Tuck house. The constable asks for a break because his horse can't keep up with an immortal one. We've mentioned a few times a tragedy that befell the Sullivan family. Like, offhand, they talk about the Sullivans, where a guy killed his wife. And I don't know what that's for, because it doesn't pay off in the story.
Right, and they use it as a hiding place later. It's like, oh, no one goes there because of the guy who killed his wife.
That's where the guy killed his wife, yeah. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense that we just keep talking about this. But The constable spells it out as much as we'll hear in this moment.
Why, we haven't had this much excitement since Sullivan killed his wife.
Back at the Tuck cabin, Winnie wakes in the night to a checkup from May. At first, she thinks it's Jesse and calls to him, and May picks on her for crushing on her elderly son. In the morning, Winnie walks out through the snow. Inside the cabin, they gather for breakfast. The man in the yellow suit interrupts their meal. He tells them a long, dumb story about his grandmother's tales of an immortal family. He has a speech impediment which forces him to repeat certain words.
Breeches and breeches, young fella.
Well, I'll be short and short. Restless and restless. Over and over again.
Better and better.
Close and close. Neat and neat. Very rich and rich. Oh, better and better.
He picks up a music box and says his grandma taught him the Song of the Immortals, and he memorized it. This is the source of that music. Sudi starts waving a gun around and recounting the full plot of the film we just watched. He tells the family that he bought these woods because he believes that the Tucks here are that very same immortal family, and Ma stupidly gives up the source of their longevity.
You mean you're gonna sell the water?
Shut up, lady! He didn't know about the water. He just knew there were old people here.
I don't even know why he thinks it's associated with the woods itself at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also don't know why the Tucks ever came back here.
I don't either.
Because they could go anyway. It's not like they have to keep drinking from the spring, right?
Correct. They don't have to do it. And there's also literally no way they could ever figure out what caused this.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, they could just go and never come back and just live their lives forever somewhere else and just every few years move on so people don't know.
Right. It would be that easy. The other thing that's even crazier in the book is actually worse than this version of the movie. This movie improves on some of the problems in the book. Because in the book, he literally found out from his grandmother at an insane asylum because a crazy lady told his grandmother this story. So a crazy person told his grandmother that there were immortal people in the woods, and he was like, I'm going to go find them. I bet they're real. No, that was a crazy person. You're in an asylum.
Yeah.
There's no reason you would believe this story when someone told it to you, let alone seek the people out. That's like if I spent all of my days trying to find Peter Pan. I know it's a story. The end. Like, I don't need to go do that.
Well, you're never going to find him now, are you?
No, I'm not. Neither is anybody else.
I'll see to that.
Whoa.
Richard died the next spring of gallium poisoning.
And his shadow's still running around. What?
Now that Sudi owns the spring, he doesn't need the Tucks for anything, but he still pretends like he'll require their cooperation to sell this
what's
water.
he going to do? Kill him?
Why not? Why is he talking to them at all right now?
Yeah. Well,
I own the spring. Go away.
Well, he doesn't know where it is.
But it's in these woods.
Yeah.
Just walk around for a while and drink water until you find it. That's how they did it. Literally just wander around and drink water until you're immortal.
But you'd have to
shoot yourself every
keep
day.
fire
testing
to
it.
dip
But
your
then,
hand in.
if you keep testing it, if you've not fully healed before you test the next one, are you going to have a permanent,
all these scars?
gunshot wound?
Oh, that's true.
or-
Yeah, because if you cut off a finger and it was the wrong one, then you're like, fuck, that finger's not coming back. Save state doesn't start until
Yeah.
you drink the right water.
You just end up looking like Zaz from DC. And there's just
I don't
all
know
these
what that is.
scars all over him. Zaz gives himself cuts on himself every time he kills somebody, so he's covered in scars. I think Killmonger does the same thing in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I think so. For some reason, Sudi offers to split his winnings with these people in exchange for theatrics where he can shoot or hang them in public to prove the water's effectiveness. When they refuse, he finally realizes that he doesn't need their help, and he tells them to hand over Winnie, and they say no, so he puts a gun in her face. Let's pause for a second. If what you're here after is the girl, why would you kill her?
Because he has no leverage against them.
Mm-hmm.
He can't kill them.
But he doesn't get any more leverage if he kills her. In fact, he loses all leverage if he kills her.
Well, but if she dies in his saving her,
Does he still get the
fine.
woods?
I don't know.
I feel like I would tear up that contract if he was like, your daughter for the trees? I didn't say she'd be alive. Here's her corpse. I shot her in the face.
Should have gotten a better lawyer.
Yeah. For some reason, the Tucks don't call his bluff, and they hand her right over.
But it ends up not being a bluff.
Right, that's the other crazy part, is this character's motivation makes no sense at all. This whole plan would have been foiled if Jesse had convinced her to try the water before now, also. It's just like, go ahead, shoot her in the face. It just doesn't do anything. It's like, haha, she drank the water. You lose. Good day, sir.
Now we kill you.
Yeah.
They do.
Better do as he says, Winnie.
But I don't want to
It's
go.
all right. Do as he says.
He drags Winnie out of the room at gunpoint. On the way out, he realizes that he could make Winnie drink the water and then use her to prove its effectiveness. But why does he need anyone for that? Can't he just drink the water himself and hang himself or shoot himself or whatever he's going to do? Literally just like Houdini, like walk up on stage and say, do whatever you want to me and I'll be fine. And if you drink this, you'll be just as fine as I am. But he, for some reason, needs someone else to be the guinea pig to survive.
I guess if he doesn't know which spring it is, why not shoot a couple of little girls on the way to finding the right one?
That's a good way to test it. You bring her around and just nip off a joint at each spring until you find the right one. And that's also encouragement for her to point him to the right spring. Mm-hmm, it's like, I'm running out of fingers. Maybe we should go that way.
This little piggy went to the market. Oh, Jesus. It's got so dark.
The Tucks follow the man out of the house, and Angus points a rifle at him. Inexplicably, the man throws Winnie to the ground, points his gun at her, and pulls the trigger. What a terrible plan. If you kill this girl, you are immediately dead. And if the gun jams, you are also immediately dead. The only survival here would be to release her and leave. Of course, the gun jams, and Angus blasts the man off his feet and down the hill. In the book, and in the 2002 film, May hits him in the back of the head with a shovel while he still has the gun to her head, which makes it even more obvious self-defense than it already was. But that's not what happens in this version of the story. For some reason, Angus shoots the unarmed man down a hill when they could have just tackled him and sent him on his way. Unfortunately for the family, the constable shows up just in time to see Sudi get shot down, but he doesn't buy their story.
Well, but he walks up on them saying he almost did it.
Right.
And the constable's like, he almost did what? And you're like, shoot the little girl in the face.
He had a gun pointed to my head. Look in his hand, there's a gun. He was pointing it at my face, and then that guy saved my life. So put him on the front page of the paper, he saved my life, and let's get on with our days. Winnie steps outside to corroborate the Tuck testimony that she was never kidnapped, and that these people saved her life, and the constable says that if Winnie agrees to return to her family, he won't charge Angus with murder. And so she does, but Angus also didn't kill anyone, and she could very easily mention here that the injured man tried to murder her 5 seconds ago, but somehow that never comes up. Angus and the boys put Sudi in their wagon and take him to a doctor, and we cut back to the foster house where Winnie wastes her days on a swing. We hear voiceover from her grandma and father worrying about her silence. Her family brings up that if the man dies, they get their woods back, and Winnie prays out loud for the man to die.
I don't think that's how title gets passed, but whatevs.
Maybe they're his children. I don't know. People are weird ages in this.
Well, I mean, the documents weren't notarized.
Maybe. The Tree Gap dairy milk carriage arrives the next day, and the milkman talks to the housekeeper about the hospitalized man. Apparently, he died in the night. It sounds like Angus is due for a hanging because Winnie thought it would be funny not to tell anyone that he actually saved her life. Who cares, though? He's invincible. As the milk carriage leaves, Jesse hops out of the back, and he and Winnie rush off to the bushes together. Winnie tells him that Sudi died, and Jesse announces their plans to break Angus out of prison. Winnie says that she can testify that Angus was acting in her defense, but Jesse cleverly points out that in order to tell the truth, she'd have to tell the whole truth, and she would have to tell the entire court about the magical immortalizing spring, because it would be impossible to leave that out of the story and for the story to make sense. No, just leave that out. You don't have to tell everybody about that. Usually the whole truth means the whole relevant truth. The jury doesn't care what you had for breakfast the day of the murder, just how it happened.
Well, the spring is kind of relevant to why this all happened, but it doesn't have to be.
Right. I mean, basically, if you just make it say he wanted these woods, and so he's holding me hostage so that he could give me back to my parents and pretend that they had kidnapped me so that he would get the woods for free.
And this family rescued me.
Yeah. And that's all true. Jesse and Miles will break Angus out, but they need a 6-hour head start to escape town, and Jesse enlists Winnie to help. Jesse gifts her a small bottle of the spring water and advises her to drink some when she turns 17, because he doesn't want her to be, legal, but he wants her to be slightly older so that it's more appropriate.
Yeah, but the fact that he's crushing already on this 12-year-old is pretty creepy.
Yeah. Her mother calls her inside, and Jesse disappears back into the woods. That night, at exactly midnight, Winne unlocks her bedroom window, and suddenly Jesse hangs upside down from above the window in a cape, completing his vampire transformation. He enters the room despite not being explicitly invited. They climb together out the window like Peter and Wendy, ageless boy and insufferable shut-in. Peter jumps with Winne on his back and then breaks his ankle on the ground, but in a few seconds it's healed, so it is like Wolverine-style invincibility. Jesse makes a torch out of an ear of corn. I've never heard of this. Isn't that how popcorn is made also?
Don't look at me like I'm the corn burning expert.
You gotta soak the corn in kerosene first.
Oh, okay. That's how you do it.
It's called brining. No, it's
What?
We see the two wandering across the roof of a jailhouse, and nearby they meet up with Miles and May. Miles has loosened the bars of the cell, and they will now set off fireworks as a distraction. Why do you need a distraction? It's the middle of the night. No one's paying attention. You already loosened the bars. During the commotion, they are instructed to yank the bars off the cell. Miles tosses one of the fireworks into his father's cell and sets the rest off behind the jail. The constable is shocked awake and rushes to investigate. Miles continues firing his Roman candles at the jail windows, shouting out threats about his intentions to break someone out of jail and daring the constable to shoot back at him. Jesse is having trouble yanking the bars out. The constable steps outside with his gun and finds a crowd who claim to be here for the fireworks show. One of them delivers my favorite line read from the movie. It's an ADR line, so it's probably being read directly off the page, so there's no reason for the actor to pause mid-delivery, and yet he does.
Somebody's been shooting out Roman candles.
When he realizes they aren't a lynch party, he rushes back inside to check on his prisoner. He calls out to the shadow in the cell, and Angus answers to complain about the fireworks.
How'd you know they was firecrackers?
Because one of them came sailing through the window. Want to see it?
Oh, no siree, Bob.
Is that the only reason they threw a firework into the cell? So that he could explain how he knew they were fireworks and not gunshots?
I don't understand why Winne needs to be here at all.
So that there's a movement in the cell.
But it sounds like Angus is still in the cell.
No,
he's not.
He's talking from outside
through the
window.
Oh, okay.
But in theory, he's
They
standing
tricked you,
outside.
Richard.
He's standing outside a jail cell window with a whole bunch of people in their underwear out there too. Like,
Yeah.
why are they're not seeing some dude shouting to the window?
After the constable leaves, the shadow in the cell leans forward into the light, and it's Winne. Apparently, they were able to work the bars off the cell, but Angus stood by in case they'd need to speak to the constable through the window. The plan from here on is that Winne will wait in the cell in Angus's place until morning, and hopefully she won't be hung as a shapeshifter.
But again, that's what I'm saying. Like, they get the bars off. So she's in the cell for movement. But then why didn't she just leave? Because
Leave when?
So I think
The whole point is to take 6 hours.
They wanted 6 hours where the constable thought he was in the bed.
All right, so the constable says, like, I got to go fix that window. Stop making noise. Everyone leaves the cell. The constable doesn't come back till the next morning.
Maybe. Or maybe he comes back and checks that there's somebody breathing in that bed.
But he won't go in because he's afraid that someone will happen, so he doesn't even bring a light with him.
I suppose you could just stuff the
But
bedding.
the whole point is that there's supposed to be someone moving in the bed all night. And in the book, she doesn't even go to sleep. She's awake the whole time, and she keeps her legs under the blankets. But in the book, she's doubling for Ma, because Ma is the one they're breaking out of jail because she hit the guy in the back of the head with a shotgun in self-defense. She doesn't even shoot him. She hits him with the butt of the gun while he has a gun to a little girl's head, and they're going to give her the death penalty for that.
Yeah.
Which would never happen.
Yeah.
As they leave, Jesse reminds Winne that he'll be back to see her when she turns 17 because he's a groomer creep. In the morning, the constable finds Winne in the cell, and we cut right to her dad walking her home. He demands an explanation for this behavior, and she admits that she loves the Tucks. Some boys notice them walking home, and we cut to her playing marble with the kids later. She's finally made some friends her own age.
Marble?
Yeah,
They just had one.
There's only one.
Yeah, I think they're just playing marble. That evening, a boy comes to the house offering to sell turtles, and Grandma thinks they make a great soup. Do you guys recall the last time we discussed eating turtles?
Earlier.
Like 10 minutes ago.
Other than on this episode? Someone gets a serving bowl for turtle soup.
Oh.
For turtle meat, specifically.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
At a
what was
bridal shower.
I don't.
Annette O'Toole unwrapped it.
Yeah, I can picture everything about that situation.
Cloris Leachman had to explain what it was.
It wasn't Coast to Coast, was it?
No, she's not.
Fooling around?
Fooling around.
Oh, wow, that pulled that title out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's not relevant to the film at all. Winnie recognizes the pet turtle that she released into the wilderness as one of the ones that the boy is selling, and he relents and gives her the turtle for free as a pet. Later, we see her walking with the turtle and talking over her plans for the bottle of spring water.
Winifred, is that you out there? Who are you talking to?
Grandma threatens again to make soup of her friend, so she dumps the whole bottle of spring water on his head to keep the turtle safe in perpetuity. It doesn't look like he's drinking it exactly. I also don't understand quite how this works. She tosses the turtle into the woods and heads home, and then we cut 100 years into the future. The camera tilts down from the sky. It's not 100 years. I guess it's like, I don't know, 80 years or something like that. No, she was 10, and then, so we cut maybe 70-something years into the future.
Well, she will have died in 76, but so it's at least
theory,
after that.
In theory, it's present day, so
Right.
81.
Yeah, so maybe it is 100 years. The camera tilts down from the sky to a country road. A Chevy truck drives down the road with all the tucks loaded into the bed. They stop in to a diner for breakfast, and May orders a strawberry phosphate. The waitress is quick to confirm that they have a strawberry phosphate, despite not knowing what one is.
Sure. Joey, you got the makings of a strawberry phosphate, whatever that is.
It's just strawberry soda. They ask about the Foster family, and it sounds like the spring was bulldozed over, but the Fosters have gone from town ever since their son was elected to Congress. I guess probably her grandson, Winnie's grandson. They head to a local cemetery and locate the headstone of Winnie Foster Jackson, who died at the age of 82, a wife and a mother. The landscape has changed so much that they can't even locate where the spring might have been. The immortal family visit the local fairgrounds, where Jesse is still working the carousel just as he did in centuries of old. His parents fear that he will be devastated by the news of Winnie's death, but he obviously hasn't visited in a century, so he doesn't give a shit about her.
I was just going to say that. I'm like, you were like, I'll
come back as soon as it's safe.
Yeah, like drink this in like a couple years so that we can be together, and then he doesn't show up for 100? What a dick.
Yeah, that's really awful. Besides, he's already grooming a new 10-year-old girl at the fair.
Mm-hmm.
When she tells him her name is Catherine, he looks very distraught, despite nobody being named Catherine in this whole stupid movie.
Well, it was the way she said her name, because Winnie introduced herself as Winnie and then Winifred, and this girl introduces herself as Catherine.
Why couldn't her name have been Winifred? Why did her name have to be Kathy, as in Catherine, which is short for Catherine? Oh my God, 100 years ago, someone told me their nickname first. Isn't that what everybody does?
Well, and I think it would have had more of an impact if she said her name was Catherine Foster.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like
she's literally a descendant?
Yeah. I mean, it would also have been just as creepy.
And it would have been the exact scene from Peter Pan.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, it's just like Peter Pan. And
The Tuck truck is loaded up with Angus's hand-carved wooden horses, but they suppose the fair is making use of plastic ones by now. May cranks up the music box again, and they're about to hit the road when Angus notices a turtle in the street. He sets it down across the road to keep it safe.
Darn fool thing thinks it's going to live forever.
If I wrote this story, I would have picked an animal that doesn't famously live hundreds of years.
Is it a turtle in the book?
It's not.
Okay.
It's a frog in the book. Why is it a turtle in the movie? First of all, frogs drink through their skin, so it makes sense to dump the water over the frog, because that's how they drink.
Yeah.
Turtles don't, and they live hundreds of years. This is the weirdest choice that they've made in this whole movie. Credits roll over the turtle, back in the road, in another futile attempted suicide. It's like, why did you move me? I'm just trying to die.
Also, reading some notes about this film, it says that in the credits, there's a dead rabbit in the road, and after the credits, the rabbit gets up and walks and hops back off into the woods. I was like, what? So I rewatched the whole credit sequence again. It's like, there's no roadkill rabbits. That's a mistake.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Just someone fell asleep watching the movie, which I don't blame them for. And they just imagined this scene on the end. This movie doesn't make any sense. The story is awful. The book is awful. I listened to the book, the audiobook today, yesterday and today, and it has all the same plot holes that this does. Some of them are worse, and it just doesn't make any sense. Another note is that we do get very vague mentions of Miles's family in this film. They say he had a wife, and they say he had 2 kids
right,
who went away, I think is all they say in the movie.
Yeah, because they suspected him.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the book, he has a wife and he has 2 kids, and they decided not to tell them about the spring so that they could live together as husband and wife forever, because she was already 40 by the time they figured out that it was from the spring water. And 40 is like, you might as well be 100. Like, that's gross. Just go die, 40-year-old.
Oh, my God.
And so they literally just didn't tell her because they didn't want people to know. But then Winnie wanders in and they're like, guess what? Spring water makes us live forever. Just a random lady off the street. But the guy wouldn't tell the love of his life how to live forever
or
and be
children.
with him. Or his children. And the explanation is like, well, she was 40 already, so it was a little late to tell her about the spring water. Plus, the kids were just kids. And it's like, yeah, they're not going to be kids forever. They're still growing.
Right. You could still wait for the kids to get older, and then they drink it.
Now, in the 2002 film, Miles's wife, when they eventually tell her the story, this part makes sense to me. She thinks that they're crazy, or that obviously they're not aging and she is. She thinks that he's traded his soul to the devil. So she takes the kids and leaves.
Yeah. Right.
Which makes so much more sense than what they went with here. And also in the book,
I think that is what happened here, though. She left them because they say witchcraft in this movie.
Oh, okay. Well, they don't say witchcraft in the book. They just say, why would we let her in on this? That's weird.
Oh.
And in the 1981 film, in the 2002 film, he says that his oldest daughter is dead, that she died a child, and that his son, it would be about 80 now. In the book, the kids both lived to their 80s. But for some reason, in the 2002 movie, one of them died as a child, which just underlines again my point. If you'd been with them and your daughter was dying of some terrible disease, you could have given her the water,
but
she would have healed, and she would have been alive.
Would she heal? Or would she be
in
just
perpetual
cholera
for the rest of life?
Dying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think I'd rather have cholera forever than die from it.
Typhoid Mary. She just goes around giving cholera to
or she got hit by got kicked in the head by a horse, and she's like all like permanently brain damaged. Here, drink this water and be this way forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's late. It's late for a save state. But oh well. Still better than dead.
Yeah, I remember reading the book when I was a kid and not noticing all these problems and being, I was like, yeah, Tuck Everlasting. Yeah, that's great. No, not so much.
It sold 5 million copies before it was optioned to make this film. So that's between 75 when it was published and 80 when they started production, which is 1 million copies a year because they taught it in schools.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a short story, and it's got kids as main characters. It's an easy sell for teachers. And also, it's basically the same story as Peter Pan or like later Twilight. Like, all you have to do is make a story about the invincible boy meets the girl who's not invincible, and he tries to convince her to join him. And it's an age-old story. And it's always going to sell a bunch of copies every time it gets rewritten. So I'm going to start rewriting that right now. I won't be able to sell it for probably another 20 years or so. But then it'll be in every classroom.
Going to call it the Eternals.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's basically similar. But it's not a good book, and as a result, it's not a good movie.
Well, and your synopsis, though we interrupted quite a bit, was fairly short. This movie's 2 hours long.
It is 2 hours long.
Weirdly long. Like, there's so many just like, we're just going to slowly pan across some nature.
Every scene ends with the score coming back in and the camera panning off to the left or the right, and just very slow wilderness shots. That's it.
And one character that just repeats himself constantly.
Yeah. Right, yeah. And how anticlimactic is that? Like, this villain, he's going to kidnap the girl and he's going to steal the woods, and we shot him in the head and he's done. End of story. Like, what a non-threat. This whole family's invincible. Who cares what you're like? What are you going to do to them? And then we're all worried about this person who's not going to get hung tomorrow. Just let them hang the person. Pretend to be dead until they bury you.
Right.
The family digs him up, takes him away. Leave by cover of night. Everyone thinks you're dead. No one's even looking for you at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what would have saved all of this? If when Miles got shot, he went, oh God, I've been shot.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the Tuck
pretend
family
to be
go,
dead.
Go, you shot my son. Oh God, you shot him.
And he just
then,
takes off.
Yeah.
And then they just beat
And
the
then
hell out
shoot
of
him.
Yeah.
And then shoot him and say he shot my son while we were walking with this girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Problem solved. Instead.
Also, bottle this water and give it to everybody in town because people deserve to live forever, and that's happy and wonderful. No one wants to age another year.
How about this? How about you just sneak it into everybody's stuff?
That's what I was thinking.
And, like, don't tell anyone where it's coming from. And then, like, you're no longer unique in this world, so you don't have to hide anymore because you were
Here's
affected
what you
just
do.
like everybody else.
You open up a bar in town, right?
Ooh.
Because then you have to be 21 to drink this stuff. So you're not freezing people as children. They're adults who don't want to age past 21.
Well, not 21 back in those days, right?
What do you mean?
There's
like
probably
7
no
or 8
drinking
was
laws.
drinking age?
Yeah. I mean, weren't they drinking in the Happy Birthday to Me, or what was it? Graduation? What was that college one where they kept going to this bar and getting kicked out?
Yeah,
of the bar?
Happy Birthday to Me. Yeah.
What? This didn't happen in that year, though, Richard.
Yeah, this is the 1800s, where you would give your baby a little bit of alcohol if it was thirsty. not even upset, just thirsty. Oh, you're thirsty? Here you go. Top you off. Yeah, there's so many different things that they could have done that they didn't do. I guess you just have to end the story very quickly. It seems like it was written over a weekend.
Yeah. What if you ate an animal who had drank the water?
I don't think you can.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You wouldn't be able to kill it.
You couldn't even chew on it. You would just have it in your mouth for a while and then you'd spit it out.
Perpetual gum.
Oh my God! We finally invented perpetual
just cut a
gum.
Piece of
Wait, what
off.
animal would represent gum though? That's what I want to know.
Oh, I'm just saying it's something I could chew on forever.
Yeah, but
a
what
hunk of meat that I cut off?
What would the meat be? You can't cut it out of the animal because the animal's impenetrable now. What would the meat?
Is that
it would.
true?
It would have to be.
I don't understand the
whole
rules of this.
The whole life form would have to be in your mouth.
Do they poop?
This is the important question.
Do the tucks poop?
Yeah.
Yeah, they poop.
But do they eat?
Yeah, they eat food.
Oh, I guess they do eat food. We watch them eat food.
They do eat.
If they didn't shit, they would just be getting bigger and bigger.
Does the poop that contain organic material from their body, like cells and things, dead parts of the insides of their body?
No, it's just the food
Just
and the
food?
bacteria
Just
that
food
was in
and
their
bacteria.
body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bacteria is not immortal.
No.
Not unless it drank the water.
Because you
it
have
doesn't-
gut bacteria, so if they drink the water,
But the gut bacteria doesn't have to die to be passed out of your digestive system.
It lives forever in that poop.
That's what I'm saying. And then you consume the poop.
But I think
Who's consuming the poop?
Well, hear me out. If you eat the bacteria that contains the water,
The bacteria still, it's just the thing that's alive in you forever.
but then
it doesn't make you alive.
It would replace your gut bacteria.
Yeah, but then I just
think
have
the problem
permanent
is that
gut bacteria.
you're thinking that this is a contagious thing, where if you consume something that was invincible, that you will become invincible. No, it's just the water. If the water leaves through your urinary tract, then you'd have to drink the person's piss. You can't eat their shit.
Okay, that's fair.
If we're going to eat human waste on this podcast, if we're going to advocate that, let's be smart about it.
What about the children?
Which children?
The genetics of passing down, because Miles had.
he had kids and they would age.
Okay.
Yeah, they need to consume it themselves to get the. It's not an inherited trait.
But the sperm would have been immortal.
But the sperm isn't water.
No,
sperm
but
is thicker than water.
But the sperm is a cell. The immortal sperm cell that fertilizes an egg would then.
It's half immortal.
That's what I'm saying.
The sperm is not a living organism, though.
No, but it's an immortal cell that's now combining with an mortal cell, and now
is sperm a cell? I think it's just a DNA delivery system.
It's like half of a cell. It's half of the information required to create a cell.
And maybe mortality is the dominant gene.
Okay. These are I know it seems like I'm being stupid and silly.
No. We have to talk this out.
Yeah, I have genuine questions about how this works.
We got another 45 minutes in this conversation. So anyway, we've decided drink piss, don't eat shit. So this spring, even if it was bulldozed over,
right,
there's still a spring there in the water. Like, there's still water underground that you could dig to.
Right.
But here's a question.
Okay.
If you bulldoze over a tree that can't die, what happens with that tree?
That would have been really weird for them, right?
Right, this tree. Can you not cut the tree? No, you can cut the tree. It just lives forever?
I don't know.
So the chunks of wood are still alive somewhere? Is there a living
I don't think you can cut it up.
piece
That's
of
why
furniture now that made out of that tree?
in this movie, there is no T carved in the tree.
Okay.
So in the canon of this film, I don't think you can even scratch the immortal tree. But in the 2002 film and in the book, they carved a T into it to indicate we were here. I don't know why we picked this one tree in particular as we were moving through the woods.
But I'm more of a mind that you probably couldn't be able to do that. But you could remove the tree entirely from the soil.
Okay. But you're right. It would not die.
But it would not die.
And they would be like, what is up with this tree? We bulldozed it over and we can't, the chainsaws won't break through it. And it's still alive.
Right,
And not even a leaf fell
every
off
time
of
I
it.
try to, and it's covered in leaves and it's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a fucking museum there.
Yeah.
In the 2002 film, they didn't bulldoze over the tree, but they buried her at the foot of the tree. So when he goes to the clearing to find the spring, her headstone is right there at the base of the tree. And it's like, is she a fucking zombie now?
Oh, no. Is she
shouldn't
trapped
you dig the
there?
box up
Yeah.
and make sure she's okay? Maybe she's waiting for you down there.
Ugh.
But he just sits there and cries at the grave, and then he leaves. And she's like, I'm down here,
They should
you
have left one of
asshole.
those like little bells with the string on it above
just
her grave.
frantically ringing as he's walking away. Oh God! Oh, I can even hear my mother's music box.
Oh,
no!
no.
It's the bell! It's the bell! Come get me!
It's like, how long is it going to take me to dig myself out of here?
Right.
Oh, and then he does dig her up, and she's like old.
Why did I ask for an oak coffin? This is
Yeah.
going to last forever.
Oh, and we didn't mention. So, did you stay through the credits or no?
I did.
And you stayed through the credits?
No.
So the post-credit scene, I thought was actually pretty cool.
There's a post-credit scene?
Yeah, because it's after humanity, so it's like a desert planet, and the Tucks are walking along, and they see the turtle again, and they're like, "Oh shit, you drank from the thing," and that's it.
There's got to be other animals,
Right.
that have actually drank from this spring. I mean, I know he normally covers it with a rock, but like,
Also, is that going to work if water's constantly bubbling up out of this spring? Like, isn't this water going to feed other trees and like spread as it comes up above the groundwater?
yeah,
Like so many immortal mosquitoes in the area.
right?
Right.
It's like, damn it, I can't get it.
I've swatted this thing 100 times.
Immortal bees.
The mosquito's like, I don't even need this blood. I'm just doing this for fun. Immortal bees, yeah. All sorts of terrible immortal stuff. See, this is the stuff that the sequel should exist to delve into.
So, thumbs down?
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
This is not worth checking out, and I have not.
But it is
Letterboxd.
fun to debate.
Sure, yeah.
Because the book goes into such little detail about anything. So,
It's all up in the air.
yeah, it's like we can come up with our own theories of how immortality
Hey,
works.
I
in
have
this
I have some
universe.
questions actually. What are the downsides of being immortal? Because typically in movies there's one downside.
Boredom?
No, more boredom doesn't even make sense as a downside of immortality. The biggest downside that anyone ever talks about is everyone you know and love
Dies.
is going to age and you're not going to. But in this case, they could all be fine.
Yeah.
Like there's maybe 12 people that I love. I could give them
Well,
all this water and they're fine.
There's like that idea that if anybody finds out about you, you being that unique person that cannot die, that then you're going to be stuck in a cage for the rest of your life being tested and studied.
That's true, because you're not all powerful. You're just immortal.
Right. They're going to keep cutting limbs off you to see how many
Or
times.
they can't even break your skin.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. The bigger problem would be that you'd be trapped in a cell. But even then, like only for as long as humanity exists.
Do they feel pain?
It doesn't seem like they do.
No, he put his hand in that fire pretty calmly.
That would be funnier though. He's like, "Ah!" the whole time. He pulls it out. He's like,
you didn't have to do that.
It's
it's like,
you see-
is he not immortal? Why did he do that?
Why is he screaming?
Yeah, no. But eventually the cell would rot away. Or like they would be transferring you from one place to another and your family just busts in and kills everyone. I feel like it's amazing that it took until this event for one of them to murder. Because I feel like anytime that you're getting in some kind of trouble, it's like, all right, well, shoot everyone involved and we'll move to another town, and that's the end of it.
It's like, we're gonna give you 80-year sentence. Great.
Cool. Give me as many lifetimes as you want.
Other, like, trying to think of, like, other... I'm not trying to pad the podcast. I was just thinking out loud.
I don't think anyone's going to get mad at us because we keep coming up with new hypotheticals.
Well, because I was thinking about the movie The Old Guard.
That's the Charlize Theron Netflix movie?
Which was but...
She's immortal.
Yeah, well,
right?
her whole team is immortal. But they go into some interesting, horrifying concepts, like one of their immortal team was considered to be a witch, and so they locked her in a metal casket and then dropped her into the ocean.
Okay.
And just like, it's like, oh man, yeah, you'd just be down there until the metal got weak enough for you to escape.
Yeah.
And what that would be like. How long would that take?
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about The Good Place. And I don't want to spoil anything about The Good Place because people should watch that show. But they do deal with this concept of forever and what it would be like and what would be bad about it.
Yeah.
And I can't go into it without spoiling the show.
Well, I do think along the same lines of what you're talking about, they could be put in jail.
Yeah.
And then as much as I want to say, oh, well, that's fine because eventually the jail will fall down and I could walk out the open wall of the place. But it's also a situation where just because you live forever doesn't mean that time moves any faster for you. Mm-hmm. Like they kind of make jokes that it does in the film where they're like, oh, what difference is that? What difference is a decade? It's like a sunset for us. It's like, it's really not. It's still a decade for you.
Yes and no. I mean, experiences like that are relative. When you're a kid,
in your memory, I think they would be.
But when
relative.
You're a kid, time does seem to pass slower because any given, a day, a week, a month, a year is such a larger percentage of your life.
Right, but if you're trapped in a jail cell for 10 years, that's just as unbearable if you're invincible as it is if you're aging, I would think.
Yeah, for sure.
So you'd probably still go crazy if you were trapped in a cell for 1,000 years.
Can you go crazy?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. Can you even be sad? I mean, like, Miles seemed pretty depressed that his family left. So damage can be done. Yeah. It's just psychological damage.
Okay. But I do think you would get bored. Like, I don't know why they would eat pancakes all the time. I feel like I'd get over that pretty quick.
I honestly don't think I would. But you could watch every movie. You could watch literally every movie.
You could. And then what?
No, and then. That's from a movie. But you could watch them again because you will have forgotten the first ones when you finish the last ones.
Can you forget?
I think so because I think the brain is finite. I don't think you can keep the plot of every movie in your head, so you just start them over. I don't remember stuff I saw, earlier in this podcast.
That actually gets into the nature of how we store memories. If they're literally stored in an organic matter, like, is that possible to forget? Is it possible to remember anything after you've drank the water?
It doesn't feel possible for me to forget any movies, but I'm sure it is.
Well, because you get older and your brain will start to decay. Right. But if you don't age and your brain is forever at the state it is at which you drink the water,
right?
Can you even make new memories?
Yeah. I mean, apparently they
then you could watch the same movie over and over again and be like, this movie's hilarious. Let's watch it again. This movie's hilarious. That would work. Every day he's like, I'm sorry, who are you? I'm Winnie. Cool. Who are you? Yeah, it's like 50 first dates, but it lasts for a century. Anyway, Letterboxd. What are we thinking Letterboxd-wise?
I'm good to not watch this movie again, so I don't have it very high. I have it at 70 out of 76. It is below Savage Harvest and above Hard Country.
Richard.
I have it at 59.
You loved it.
Still below Savage Harvest, but above Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
They're both kind of non-plots.
Yeah.
Tuck Everlasting is in 71st out of 76 for me. It is just below Hard Country, and it is just above Scream. Because I feel like Scream is just barely less of a movie than this was. That's the 1981 Scream, obviously.
Yeah, but Hard Country was actually just obnoxious to watch. This one was boring and nonsensical, but Hard Country was annoying.
Although Hard Country had actors in it, and this movie did not have actors in it. So let's get into that now, shall we?
Sure.
Our director was Frederick King Keller. This was his first direction. It was followed with mostly TV work, including 30 episodes of Hey Dude, A Sequest, A Nash Bridges, and more recently 6 episodes of 24. The novelist was Natalie Babbitt. The same novel has been adapted into, like I said, the 2002 film and the Broadway musical, but also a 1984 series. Writer Fred A. Keller was the father of the director and also played Angus Tuck in the film. And then the only other actors who I could find credits for were Mark Callan, who doesn't even have a character listed in the credits. He was a producer on 335 episodes of the Australian soap opera Neighbours, and Timothy Klein played Charlie, and he had bit parts in Hide in Plain Sight and The Burning, but nobody else was in anything else. Mm-hmm. And the girl that they got to play Winnie, it doesn't make any sense unless they forgot to cast that part and then found her on set. Because she's a nothing character. But also the 2002 film has basically the same problem. Although the cast of the 2002 film, Alexis Bledel is the lead. She's the Winifred. But still, the Winifred character in the book and in the movies has nothing to do. It's just she watches the Tucks, she does what they tell her to do, and then the movie's over. But in the 2002 film, the parents in the Tuck house are William Hurt and Sissy Spacek, and Ben Kingsley is playing the guy in the yellow suit. So it's like they're big names, like Oscar-winning actors playing these parts, but the movie doesn't come together any more coherently there than it does here. Because it's a bad story, and so it hurts the movie in a big way. I don't know how they got all those people to sign on. Maybe they were just hard up for work at the time. I think that's everything for Tuck Everlasting. If you guys have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all of our socials at vintagevideopodcast.com/linktree. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Private Lessons, our second consecutive inappropriate age difference film, which IMDb describes like so. An immigrant housemaid seduces a 15-year-old boy and later fakes her own death as part of his chauffeur's blackmail plot. Troubles arise when the two start to fall in love. It's the horniest film that we've reviewed on this show, including Caligula. And it's actually a difficult watch in places.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to this one.